Welcome to Franchise Focus. I'm your host, Lisa Lankowski. I am a certified franchise consultant representing hundreds of franchise concepts. Franchise Focus is all about shining a light on the franchise industry, and I really love talking to those that own the franchise within the system, because we get to hear their education about that. And so today I'm very pleased to welcome Emily and Chris Glowacki, who are the franchise owners of Second Family Mainline in Philadelphia. Welcome, Emily and Chris.
Thanks, Lisa.
We're really happy to have you guys on and hear your story of how you came into franchising. It's one of the things that I really like to emphasize to my clients, that people from all different walks of life are part of the franchise world. They really are. Yes, do you have those really super uber well-to-do people that are in there? Yes. But then you have, regular everyday people that are still in nursing to this day and selling IT software. How the heck did franchising get you and grab you into its web?
So I had been doing some research, looking at ways to start my own business and hopefully talk Emily into joining me in starting a business. My career leading up to it, I'd always worked for small business owners, companies that did less, 10 million or less a year, reporting directly to the owner. And the idea of getting into franchising was that we needed something that could, right from the get-go, start generating the business and start generating revenue for us. And was obviously with Second Family, we care for seniors in the Philadelphia area. And with Emily's background in nursing, it allowed us to sort of pick things up and go quickly.
Right, so Second Family is a senior, more focused on that senior care space or family care space, in-home companion, big area of concern. Especially, we know there's so many demographics, and I'll bet you can spit them out about, how many people are turning 65 right now, and the need, especially with what we just came through with the pandemic, of people wanting to stay longer within their home. So you sat there, you looked at the franchising space as something that would be a little bit quicker. They've done the branding, they've done the marketing, they've kind of figured it out, and now instead of you having to do that, now you come in and you decide to go. But you decided to go the little bit more tricky route of being the very first franchisee, which I was also one of the first in my franchise as well. And that means, they might not have everything all together at that point. And what's really important is that you're considered part of that core 10. You're part of that initial base of people that are really helping to get this going and make it what it now is this much longer. So at what point, when did you open up your business, first of all?
So we were licensed to become a senior home care agency in the end of the summer of 2019, and started to try and work through the process of figuring out how we were going to open our doors and what all of that meant. And a big part of you talked a little bit about Second Family itself and being the first franchise. What attracted us to them was the idea that they had a technology solution. I think for me right away, my background was in technology sales. Right. And you saw a solution that was going to allow you to present to your employees, to the families you care for, and to us, a simple solution that was, sort of all in one. And then also too, just the personalities that Chad and Josh that we met, who are the franchisors at Second Family. When we met with them, like everything we've done through this process, there's a personal connection that's made.
Sure.
People that are wired somewhat similarly, or
we sort of shared a similar story. Josh and Chad started the business because they had a loved one who was suffering with dementia, and I grew up, my grandmother on my mother's side, Mary, had dementia, Alzheimer's, and it was probably part of the reason that I ended up becoming a nurse, and it certainly was part of the reason that I saw and understood the need for in-home care, because at that time I was in high school, so this was like mid-90s. There wasn't a lot of in-home care solutions like there are today.
Right.
But we felt like Second Family had like three aspects. They had great technology, not only that the families get to use, but we got to use on the back end. they had nurses who were care coordinators. So even though the work that we're doing isn't skilled nursing in the home, we're hiring CNAs to go in and really help with people's activity of daily living. But they found that having a nurse as sort of the point person and the care coordinator to go in and meet the family, you know, I saw that, immediately saw the role for myself.
Sure.
That I could get to know the families and then also not only be a resource for the families, but also for the CNAs that go into the home. You sort of become this point person where everybody, you get to hear from the CNAs about what they think we could be doing better to what the families need and kind of helping bridge that gap.
Wow. Yeah, and you know, I do tell my clients all the time that finding that fit, that, you know, like putting on a nice pair of slippers, like it's cozy, it's comfy. You know, you're in business with these people for a long time, and out of the gate, when it's resonating with you from the technology side, it's resonating with you from the care side and that nurse piece, yeah, that's like a great way to go. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned summer 2019. We all know what happens next. Yeah. Not easy, you know, and that's also part of business ownership, is that you just don't know what's happening. You don't know, there's a lot that's not in your control, mm-hmm. but something that what you have really needed during that time, and here you are still standing, you know, 3 years later, and you are, you know, you're thriving. And so that's great. And now how many owners are in the system now today?
I believe there's 12 franchises that are open throughout the country.
Right.
Texas, Florida, Ohio, Georgia.
Yeah.
And you're part of now the validation process. We were just chatting about that, where, you know, prospective owners call you and ask you what this is like. And, you know, if you're not saying, you know, run for your life, like you're sitting there explaining what you've been through, the good, the bad, the ugly, for them to really make that understanding of if this is something that's right for them, right?
Yeah, I think Chris usually will help and have those conversations, and I think is very candid and open exactly, you know, what it's been like for us. And I think our story's a little different because we opened and really started servicing in January of 2020. And so, you know, it was but out of that, I think we kind of have shaped our business around what we had to do during COVID, and that was to really get good at specializing families with certain caregivers and making the right match sort of from the beginning or within those first couple of weeks, so that there was less people going different places and worrying about who could maybe expose who. And that's something we got really good at, and that's something we now continue to do because the caregivers love it and the families love it. And so
you have to talk through everything in this business. Like nothing is easy. Talking with caregivers from day one, we interview, hire, go through orientation with every caregiver that we hire as an employee. And it's the same thing with families as well too, that there is no magical solution to what we provide. It's help as much as we can and be there to listen to what's going well or not going well and talk through it. And this opening up in January of 2020 and really catching steam as we led into a worldwide pandemic. In some ways, it made things crazier. In other ways, it was a little bit of a commonality with everybody. Nobody knew what was going on. We could talk through it. And I think we just sort of hunkered down that this business is built on the fact that we're available to talk to whomever, either side, clients or caregivers, whenever they need to, and try and figure out a solution.
Right. And you both have found your fit in what it is that you're doing in your daily role. You know, I'm going to go out on a big ledge here and say that you're more of the logistical, you know, side of this, and then you are on the other end of dealing with the caregivers and with the families, and you know, it's a nice role and a nice fit for both of you. Have you found something that you truly doesn't fit for either one of you, and you've put that out there?
I would say
scheduling.
Yeah. I mean, the first
we have the
year,
greatest operations manager of all time. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Joy.
Okay.
We did it for 2 years.
Yeah, a year and a half, 2 years, we would be sitting at the kitchen counter starting very early in the morning, and then all of a sudden it's late at night, and like, did we move from here, trying to figure out the schedule. Luckily we were able to get an operations manager that I worked with in a previous life, and she takes it over and does it really well with it. I mean, I think that's the one thing. But we have Emily and I are married, we're running a business together,
Right.
and while we've had very different career paths, her being a nurse, and I've always joked that like there's this voice when we're with a family that I've never heard before when she's talking to a patient, or when she would butt dial me when she's at the hospital, and now I get to see that when we go in and meet with a family, and it's while we're very different, there's this common thing of, I think, listening to people and trying to find a solution that's worked really well.
Sure, okay. You have, and I think this is important for the audience to hear this, you have a silent investor that's part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because coming into a business like this, one of the biggest problems that people have with business ownership is being undercapitalized.
Mm-hmm.
And so you think that you're going to cash flow quickly, that revenue is going to come in, but things happen or something happens and you've got to divert that money over here, and so that cash is not coming in and you start getting sunk quicker and quicker. So you have a silent partner. Can you explain how that worked and what their role is? I mean, they're silent, but how did that all come about?
Yeah, so Sean is a dear friend of ours from college. Emily and I met at Ursinus College, and Sean was there with us. And he was somebody that I always talked to about ideas, or when I was making a change in my career path, we would sort of talk to one another. And as I was talking to him about this idea, he sort of gave his blessing to it. He's like, I think this is a great idea for you, and this is why, and sort of leaving, having coffee with each other.
And not to interrupt, but I think Sean saw the value in it because his grandmother had suffered a stroke and required 16 years of 24/7 care. Now he was, his family was very tight-knit, and he had aunts and uncles and his mom, and everyone chipped in, but that becomes really taxing over time, and they did find caregivers who became part of their family, like they were second family, and they actually became some of our first employees when we opened Second Family. Mm-hmm. But I think he saw the stress that caused his parents and the aunts and uncles, and saw what a relief it was when they did find the right help. So that was also, I think, why
he was seeing it so clearly. And I remember him calling. I mean, I only had a couple of miles drive from us, having coffee, and it was, I want to help you with this. Like, I want to get involved. And for him, from a business perspective, it was a little bit of a different model. He's a real estate developer, and this allowed for, somewhat predictable cash flow expectations. Right. And so it's worked for us. And Sean, he's not involved in the day-to-day operationally, but he's somebody that we look at numbers with and go through financials, and he runs billing, and he's still a great voice to talk through things of what's going well and what's not when it comes to running the actual business side of it.
That's excellent. Now, because typically whoever is involved has to be part of the process, so was he in with you as from the get-go and going on all the calls and going to Discovery Day and all of that?
So Discovery Day for sure. Him and I went down to Maryland to visit Chad and Josh at their office and sat through all of it and went through training, and we went through sort of not even mock interviews. Actually, they were interviewing caregivers in that process. And early on, Sean was helping with that. He was sitting in on interviews that we were doing and going through orientation days with us, and it was to give feedback,
right.
and to be there. And as Emily had said, his family had gone through it.
Right, right. That's great. And it is important, because without that extra layer of financial help, it can be very difficult. Mm-hmm. And can you even imagine trying to have done this without him? Like, it's just, it could be very, very difficult. So it's a win-win for all the parties. Mm-hmm. So that's terrific. Mm-hmm. All right. And then, so when this goes really quick, this show, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break. Mm-hmm. We're going to hear a word from our sponsor, Zoom One Media, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk more about the fact that you have over 100 caregivers and what that's like. So stay tuned, everyone, and make sure you come back and stay tuned.
What makes a Wawa Club? Is it the crispy bacon on the turkey BLT? The endless layers of flavor of the buffalo chicken salad? Or is it a secret handshake? Nah. At Wawa, there's a club for everyone. Find yours today.
We ride for those who died. The Police Unity Tour and RVN Television is bringing to you a show called On Your Honor, Straight Talk, and I'm your host, Patrick Monturi. I am a retired police chief from Florham Park, New Jersey, and I am also retired from the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. I am currently, for the last 27 years, the CEO and founder of the Police Unity Tour. And this show will bring to you straight talk about law enforcement, the actions and heroism that is provided to you, the citizens of the United States, as well as their actions in falling in the line of duty, as we could see some of the stories that surround that. Again, please watch us on RVN Television and be safe, take care.
At Jersey Mike's, they slice your order fresh right in front of you. And let me tell you, watching that can send a rush of emotions through a person. Exciting.
All right, welcome back to Franchise Focus, and I'm Lisa Linkowski. I'm sitting here with Emily and Chris Glowacki, and they are the franchise owners of Second Family Mainline in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia area, and we just saw an overview about the business with some pictures of some of your clients, and you know, this is a very mission-driven concept. This is not something where you're just an investor and you're throwing some money at it and that's it. Like, this is, you have to be all in, mentally, physically, spiritually, like the whole thing. And I had mentioned right before we went to commercial break that you have over 100 caregivers, 100 caregivers. That is an impressive amount of people to have to work with, the personalities, the everything that goes into that. So talk to us about that and what it's like to manage so many different people.
Sure. I mean, I think we talk about that all the time, that this is all about personalities and communication and like how can we, make like the best fit. And that's really just over time getting to know the caregivers a little bit more as best we can. And I would say, we have a certain number of caregivers who work a 40-hour work week with us that have been working with us for several years. And we certainly have gotten to know them really well. Now, we also opened during the pandemic, so there was a piece of it that was, we couldn't all be together and it wasn't safe to be together, and we didn't. So it's almost like we're refocusing now and getting to spend more time and getting to know the caregivers in person a lot better. I talk to them all the time. Anytime a caregiver goes to one of our clients, they're to speak with the RN care coordinator first, just so they can understand more about the family, know exactly what's happening. They can read a care plan, but when they get to talk to me, typically I've known the family longer, I know a lot more, I know what works when one caregiver is there and what works when the other is there, and those are all the kinds of tips that you need to have a phone conversation about.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's all.
I mean, with the caregivers, one of the things that they told us from the home office is that you always need to be hiring. And what does that mean? Does it mean hiring every month? Or, we're at the point where we are interviewing and hiring twice a week at this point. There's no shortage of press about there being a shortage of caregivers in this world, and the system is moving in the direction, while we're also short on caregivers, that there's more people that are going to be cared for. And I can't emphasize enough that from day one of somebody coming up the elevator into our office as a caregiver, we try and make sure they understand where Emily and I are coming from in running this business, and that we're very involved in the operational and care side of this business, and making sure that they know we're a phone call away as a caregiver. As to where there's other home care agencies that are out there that are, have a lot more franchises that are there and may not be owner operated. That's where we think we make the difference on both the caregiver side, and then it naturally translates
to the clients,
to the family and clients that we care for. Yeah, exactly.
Sure, and you are all heart, by the way, so you're going to be very modest about this, but when we had our initial discussion, one of the things that sets you apart is that you really care for your caregivers and for the people that they're not just these employees that are just a number, like you care for them. And that also then lends itself to them staying, because oftentimes these caregivers are not treated well in a lot of circumstances, and they are taken advantage of, and it's not a pretty scene out there for a lot of caregivers. But you have instilled a culture that is letting these people know that they are part of second family, right? They are part of your family, you know, in this, right?
Yeah.
Like you're all in this with them as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm more present. When problems are there, I'm there. You know, when someone's calling and going, I don't know that I can do this anymore, or, you know, late at night and maybe we're caring for someone else, but the other, the best example I can think of is the other spouse fell and they wanted to be able to help them, but they were caring for another caregiver. And so, you know, they know that they can call me and that I can be there to help. But yeah, you have to, it's a cheesy saying, you got to put your money where your mouth is. But, you know, one of our caregivers just said to me the other week, he's like, I can't believe, like, you've been out here twice this week. Like, I really appreciate you coming out here to give me a break, to show support when there was a small gap in coverage. So those are the things I think that make the difference. And I've been a nurse for 16 years, so I also know what it's like to do their job. Luckily, I've always been in the hospital and I've had a team around me, so in a way I know what they do, but I've actually had more resources than them. So I don't.
You have empathy for it.
Yes, I have a lot of empathy
You've
and
got the
understanding that to think about, okay, if I was with this person for 12 hours totally on my own, you know, how difficult could this be? So.
And you have, it's not just you that's in the nursing role, you have several others. How many are you up to at this point?
So we have 2 other nurses that work for us right now. One was recently hired and is actually going to step in as like a nursing manager role, sort of along with me. Someone I worked with for a very long time and a good friend of mine, so I'm really excited to have her as well. Yeah. So, and they help that RN care coordination piece where they'll be assigned specific clients, get to know the family, get to know the caregivers going there, and make sure everybody's on the same page with the care plan.
And it's, I mean, just overall, sometimes you don't take the time to look back at it, but we've hired another nurse that Emily has called her work spouse for many years. And we've been trying to talk her into joining us for a long time, so we're both incredibly excited. But our director of recruiting is my sister, Kate. Our business partner is a dear friend from college. And we truly have tried to create a family in the business that we've created. And for those who we aren't close with that get involved, we try and make them sort of feel a part of it as quickly as we can.
And we've connected with a lot of, you know, in the senior space, there's so many different people to connect with and get to know, but, you know, we try to get to know as many partners and have as many resources as possible. And some of our closest partners, it tends to be the same thing. You know, they've been best friends since they were little. One was someone's babysitter, and like we met with a hospice company. That same thing. It's family and friends who work together and know each other. And we've sort of made these natural relationships with referral sources, but also resources for our families.
Because what we do is not. We can't do everything in the space. You need physical therapy and occupational therapy. At some point, second family is not going to be able to care for you. You may need to move, or you may need hospice care. And having those relationships that are also part of this family that we've created, we have no problem going to that core group of people that we've partnered with.
And it's trust. Because if you give a referral to someone and that does not go well for the client, that comes back on you, right? And likewise, when someone refers a client to you, they want to know that you are caring for them and you are taking immense, you know, just above and beyond, because again, it comes back on that person. So creating that, it's literally a circle of trust.
We've actually cared for some of their family now at this point. So it's like now they have working knowledge of like how second family operates. So those things are really what make me proud of what we do and the relationships that we've made.
It's been one of the best surprises, I think, is sort of feeling like I was the furthest from this space. I'm not a nurse. I've never cared for someone, don't have the skill set to do so. And besides bugging her with help with it, it's like the space of senior care. There's lots of great people out there that are willing to talk through things with you and make introductions and tell you what goes well and doesn't go well.
Okay. Now, I want to make sure I get this right because this is fantastic. When we spoke, and this is the quote, all the things that are great about business ownership are what makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I might get a tattoo that goes right across my forearm there.
And doing it with your spouse as well.
Right,
It's
and doing it
also,
with your spouse.
it makes the pendulum swing faster,
Right.
I think, at the dinner table. But
So talk to me about that.
I think we've got a great, perfect example. We just took our kids away for a little bit for spring break, and three families that we had met and talked about starting care, and we knew that they were almost ready. Like, it all kind of came to fruition while we were on vacation. And so I think for some people that might be really frustrating. And there's a part of you that's like, oh, I'm just on vacation and I want to enjoy this. But I can also say, hey, I was on vacation and I had some conversations and I got to talk to the caregivers and I got to talk to the family, and things are moving along and they're on their way. Or I'm at the kids' soccer game and I'm doing a care plan call with a caregiver.
Right.
You know, I have other friends and moms who are like, oh God, you're on the phone again. I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm here. So I think that's, for me,
Right.
and coming from a world of nursing where it was like I knew what I had to do, when I had to do it, and I could walk out the door and know that the job was done. This is obviously very different, but it brings me a different sense of accomplishment and pride. So it's all of those things.
from my perspective, I feel like the first few years that we've owned this business, as we grow, or as a new family starts with us, Emily has this deep sigh and like sort of anxious look to her. And I keep trying to convince her, this is a good thing. People are coming to us because they hear we're doing great things. And whether it's we're on vacation or we're sitting at the dinner table or breakfast, whatever it is, we find a way to hand things off. And it's not always, very easy, but we talk through it. I think we've gotten immensely better at talking to each other about, hey, can I help you with this thing? This isn't maybe the thing that I do all of the time. Can I help you with it? Or
Do a little bit of lifting
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
That's good. And the fact that you were able to go away on vacation, like that's something,
Right.
You did go. When was this? Have you been away before this?
Yeah, a couple times.
See,
Yeah.
so that's good
Yeah,
because I
it's-
know I was just speaking to a business owner and they just went away for an overnight and they dipped their toe into an overnight and the world didn't end. So then they were like, okay, maybe we could do a long weekend. And, and people don't think about that, but yeah, like,
Yeah.
and that's also, and she did say, I like this, she said, when we went away and things went wrong, that's when we knew those were the things that we needed to fix. And I was like, yes, absolutely,
Yeah,
right?
can
100%.
can help expose some things. for
So
sure.
you mentioned that now we're 3 years post pandemic here. We're 3 years in this space. You were reframing, getting to know your caregivers, making those bonds even stronger, strengthening up your business, kind of shoring it up even more. What are the goals for you for now? We're almost coming to the second half of the year. Like, what are some things that you're really trying to focus on?
For me, and the piece that I always wanted from the beginning but couldn't happen was educating the caregivers and getting together in order to do so. So starting since January, we've had in-person educations with different specialists. We had someone who's an occupational therapist who specializes in patients living with dementia. This month we have a girlfriend of mine who's a registered dietitian and a type 1 diabetic herself and trains people on how to operate an insulin pump and getting her perspective. We have CPR classes now every single month for people to get certified, recertified. So it's just bringing everyone together and trying to, for me, I've always been someone who wants to learn more and to be a forever student in a way. And so just sharing that value with the caregivers as well and kind of letting them know from the beginning that that's part of being here, is that we all want to improve.
Right.
In that way.
And I think from the education side and getting together and making sure people know that our caregivers know that we're trying to do everything we can to make their job rewarding and helpful and make a good living doing so. Everyone talks about the retention of caregivers and how it's sort of a revolving door. And I think we've done really well in retaining employees, and that's like a constant goal. Like off of the continuing education is to help keep those employees working with us, finding the schedule that works for them so that they can. And then in doing so, it automatically leads to great care being provided to the families that we're working with. We've, over the 3 years, for the most part, our business has grown from a revenue standpoint every month. We in the beginning of this year had our first time where it first sort of leveled off, and it's felt nice to sort of catch our breath and say, okay, here's what we need to do. We're going to invest in education, bring on another nurse, do other things that we can to make sure that the business is as stable as possible while we continue to grow it.
Yeah, and I think the values behind our business, you can have certain values and think certain things when you start, and then as you really start to get up and operating, you start to understand even more about yourself and what you truly believe in and what's important to you. And I think just making sure that everyone who's a part of Second Family is understanding that. And so that's something we're really working on and want to express with.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like our mission in the beginning was we care. It was very, very simple, and we're going to do everything we can because we care. And now it's a much different story. And I think embracing the idea that the story has changed a little bit in a great way. So figuring that out and making sure everyone that we encounter hears that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, they are so lucky that they landed on you guys to be the first franchisees, because, you know, again, this is not easy, and you're going to see people that are going to come and go, because this is just such a different world. And it's, to your point, you know, there's burnout, there's just, you know, you take it to heart, it's difficult, there's a lot of moving pieces. And so sitting here and having you guys as this this emblem of success, of doing this and doing it right, not to say it's all gone well, but all things considered, you're doing fantastic. And so I thank you so much for being in such a caring place that I've been a part of that world with my family member, and it is not easy out there. No. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
The best way, you know, you're constantly hiring for caregivers and for clients to reach out to you. What's the best way for people to reach you?
I mean, I think the easiest way is to go to our website, which is, our website is secondfamilymainline.com. You can fill in your information there, and it comes right to us. I take a lot of pride in the fact that the first phone call you'll have will be with me, and I'll be very willing to listen to the story in ways that we can help.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Terrific. Well, I can't thank you enough. This is terrific. And we did put your contact information back up on the screen. And thanks for joining. This is Franchise Focus. It airs every Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And you can learn more about me. I represent over 500 franchise concepts. You can go to my website, which is at milestonefranchising.com. Until next time, thanks so much for watching.